Hello everyone and welcome to today's Book Club Live. So this is our second Book Club Live and I have three very special guests to review three very good books, I hope. Let's see what they're like when we review them. So my first guest is Lauren Durrance, who is a digital trainer at EMS, and together we chose a particular book that Lauren wasn't aware of, that I was aware of, called The Foundering Flounder by Raman Seghal. And the reason that I chose that book was that I have met Raman before, both in the UK and in the US, and he was a really engaging character and was really inspirational as well. So from my point of view, I was hoping that his book, The Foundering Flounder, would be inspirational as well. So, hi Lauren, nice to meet you. That's a bit all staged, isn't it? So I'm just going to say hello, Lauren.
Hello.
Are you all right?
You did me first because I'm the most annoying.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the book, The Foundering Flounder, and it was written by Raman Seghal. And the reason that I like it and the reason that I was interested in the book is that he, from my point of view, is running a northeast-based business, but not only in the northeast of England, right across the UK and internationally as well, predominantly in the US. And I liked that journey that he was on. What did you think about the book?
It's quite a far cry from my usual haunt. So in honesty, it was put on my desk with a lovely little post-it note on it saying happy reading, which I really appreciated, even though I found out that it wasn't you who wrote the post-it. And I really didn't think I was going to have a fun time reading it in any way, shape or form.
Why?
Because I like Danielle Steele.
Okay, good. That's really good, yeah, absolutely.
Other than your own book,
Oh, yeah.
I haven't read a business-based book in my entire life, given the fact that I have run a business for a couple of years, a long time ago. However, it doesn't pain me to admit, I really enjoyed it.
Right,
I think a lot of the takeaway for me, I've written notes, a lot of the takeaway from me was more surrounding that it is obviously 24 lessons to refocus your business, the pinnacle thing being and better yourself.
Yes.
And there are lots of relatable lessons that people try and keep separate from business. Obviously, I don't run a business anymore. I'm hoping I'm a good little cog in our business, but in your business. But it essentially, my takeaway from it was, yes, okay, I don't own a business. However, there are loads and loads of things in this and loads of post-it notes that I took both in a business sense and better your life sense.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, and that was one of the things that I really loved about it. It was a really authentic voice.
It was.
I mean, I'm fortunate because I've met Raman and I've spoken to him, so I could hear his voice all the way through. But I had that feeling that even if you hadn't met him, if you weren't aware of what his voice sounded like, you heard his voice through the book. It was very conversational.
Yeah, it pushes through. It
Yeah.
reads really well. There's some really realistic sentences in it where it's not just I've got to write this book so it has to sound like this, and it is, I assume, Raman who's like, this is how it needs to be said in this book no matter what.
Yeah, and there was truth in it. Did you think there was truth in it?
Yes, there was.
Warts and all truth.
I've
sometimes
bookmarked it. Warts and all truth.
Yeah.
Warts and all language, which again for me, when you are writing such a hard-hitting book about business, to include a language that is more conversational and more realistic, especially when it's business focused, absolutely helps. But the introduction, I will get to later bits. I haven't just read the introduction. The introduction contains a quote that is put in that I've really enjoyed, that I thought about for far too long. Someone once told me the definition of hell. On your last day on earth, the person you could have become will meet the person you became.
Right. Wow.
I mean, obviously, as a society now, we run in a don't regret anything, YOLO, make sure you do everything. My dad constantly tells me, you can't take money with you, so just, things like that. And to have that as a start of a business book was a bit like, what's the tone for this going to be like?
It's interesting that, because actually that quote, I think, runs really strongly right the way through the book as well.
It does.
I think there is that, there's an element of that all the way through, isn't there? So for me, when I was thinking about the business as well, thinking about the business that Raman was talking about, he sort of wove that feeling, that thread of being realistic all the way through it. And I suppose in some ways, a lot of business books that, I mean, you said you hadn't read them.
I've read two great ones.
Okay, so a lot of the business books that I've read in the past talk about things from a isn't everything wonderful perspective. Everything's been wonderful all the way through, and now it's even better. Yeah. And this wasn't that sort of book.
No, it was not. There was so much truth and reality and basically a sense of, I am not going to sugarcoat this for you. The best way I can put these lessons across in a book, which Raman has done, is to tell you real life situations. So there was some really surprising things in there. This is why I made notes. Some really surprising things in there. I ran a business at a very young age, 21 to 23. It didn't ever get as big as us here. It didn't get very big at all. And I ran it for 2 years before I returned to the industry for better knowledge. And I don't know whether it's a generational thing or perhaps just the people that I spoke to at the time. It was ingrained into me, all business is good business. Right. Which is not a real thing.
Yes.
In any way, shape or form. It's not a real thing. It doesn't exist. And Raman has a section in this book. It's actually titled Say No, Build a Defence System.
I'm so pleased you pulled that one out because so on my notes as well that you can't see, I had a look at things that I thought was really interesting. And that was one of the areas that there was that one, and the other one which was Rise Above the Envy, that chapter as well, which I thought was really good, where as you're saying, it is a sort of, I suppose, a truth session.
It is.
Really.
Well, when I read it, again, I grew up with, I mean, my dad's been in business for nearly 30 years, as long as I've been alive. My mum is now self-employed. She runs a guest house. I like to think that, thankfully, our family knows business. And when I got to that chapter, Say No, it surrounds the idea that actually, no, not all business is good business. And you get to a point, whether it's early on or you've been in 10 years, where actually you do turn around and there is going to be a client or a contract that actually you look at and kind of think, no, absolutely not. And I actually never thought about it from that perspective, because when I started, I was young, I was naive. Hopefully I'm a better designer on the back end than I was when I ran it. But it was everything. Take on everything. Reap all of the money. Just get all of it through. And it just isn't that thing.
Yeah, and he talks about sort of making money, not chasing money.
Yes.
In terms of sort of in the early days, you say yes to everything.
Yeah.
And live to regret it afterwards. And I suppose his learning and the learning throughout the book is sometimes it is okay to say no. Yeah. And it's probably better to say no in some instances. Yeah. It's quite a scary position to be in though, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think my biggest takeaway from that specific chapter, not in a push blame way, but certainly if it's not going to work for you, if it's not going to be good for your team, if it's not going to be good for your business, not if it's not worth your effort, but certainly if it isn't a good fit, despite the fact that they might have headhunted you for this, ultimately it shows worse off on them if they take it badly for you to say, look, we don't think this is a relationship that's going to work. And he also highlights in it really well where they had a long-standing client for a number of years, kind of one of their OG, let me get this right, low maintenance but low profit customers, like clients. And after maybe 3 years, they became something that they never used to be when a different creative director took hold, and the relationship completely broke down. So you can have a long-standing customer or client for years and years and years within business, and a single change at their end, not so much yours, can be the absolute pinnacle for change and kind of, oh no, we can't work together anymore.
And there was a really good chapter, I don't know the chapter name, so you have to read the book to find out, about complacency, which I thought was really good as well, and that was a good highlight of that, so that you have those clients that you expect to be there, that you think are always going to be there, and you service in that low way in terms of it's just an easy client to have, and then suddenly something changes and you've been complacent with the client, but also within your own business as well. I think that was an interesting lesson, was always striving for something else as well, and looking at opportunities. I think was a big thing through the book as well.
Yes, definitely, because he is brutally honest. He admits quite a lot of things that with other business books you might have read, people don't admit to, because it's all daisies and green and blue skies, because people don't want to depict that running a business is actually not difficult, 'cause that's not the right word.
Well,
But
you know what I liked that he talked about, because I obviously identify this as well. It was business and success comes with a lot of sacrifice.
yes,
And I think that was something that he really highlighted. That, you know, he talked about it from his children's point of view, the family point of view, the location, because as a business owner, he moved countries even. And I think that was that for me was something that people don't talk about, the amount of sacrifice that you have to make when you own a business and when you start a business or when you're building a business. People see the success, they don't necessarily see what goes on behind that success, and I like that he talks about that as well, in a pretty graphic way.
Yeah, just a smidge. Again, it resonates with the language he's used for it. It's really good. The only other thing I took from kind of the first half, because it wasn't that the mood switched, it was certainly that it got very more nitty gritty and like hard hitting. I essentially took away from obviously each chapter being labelled appropriately as almost really chill top tips for potentially growing a business. And if you look at it from an outset, you look at them and think, duh. Things like worship your clients, adore your staff. Do you know what I mean? You look at it from that sense. So if you were just to read the title of the chapter, you look at it and think, how are you going to embellish this?
Absolutely.
And then you read the chapter. Again, adore the clients is one of those, the age-old saying of the customer's always right. And he has a really good chapter where he's like, nah, actually that's not the case, which is where he goes on to pick and choose clients. The staff they kind of worked hand in hand simply because it spoke of a client that had changed, that had a change within their company that impacted Raman's company. It wasn't good, the relationship broke down, but he really, really pushes that the team needs to feel the loss as well. Not just about like looking after your team. Obviously, I know that plenty of companies offer things like pizza payday and pints. Apparently that's a massive thing now.
Really? Is that a hint?
Ply your employees with pints.
That sounds like a hint. Sounds like a good day for me.
Gin.
Gin day.
A gin day, yeah, essentially. I think we could work that in. But James is thumbs down in us from behind the camera. But he does it in a way that even a small company or a large company, he talks about a pinnacle moment where that relationship broke down with a client. He gave money back. He said, look, it's not going to work. It's not for us. And then he describes sitting down really quite forlornly with his team in a sense of what on earth just happened. And he talks about how ordinarily business owners don't push that onto their staff. They don't want them to feel what's going on in maybe the more high-powered, my dad always told me to don't concern you things that don't concern you, essentially. But he described it in a way of it was a loss to the company, but all of these staff are also part of that. And I think when I was reading it, I wrote this down so I didn't forget, you always look at an entrepreneur when you're doing any type of research on any entrepreneur, and you look at that person and you think they are high-powered, they're driven, they know what they're doing, they're confident. And by the time I got to the end of this book, his sign-off could have literally been, you need as much courage as a lion to do this, to admit mistake, to understand your staff, to say no to clients, to be cutthroat. And I forget. You must be very brave, Phil. Honestly.
Okay, can I okay. Well, I'm going to just highlight one more thing before we finish and we discuss whether it's a hit or a miss in terms of a book. There was one particular chapter that I'm really passionate about that I loved to see in there, which was to learn something every single day, which, all the way through. So he was talking about lessons that he'd learned, but actually towards the end, he then talked about the lessons that he still needed to learn. So even though he'd learned all of these lessons and was sharing 24 lessons with us, that was sort of the tip of the iceberg. This was maybe Raman, this is book one, or could, there's further books to come basically. But it sort of the Founder and Flounder to me felt like the first act of his business life. So this is the experience that I've had up to this point. But I'm fully expecting more experience, and there's probably another book in it as well.
Absolutely. I think it's one of those senses where I'm not a business owner anymore. I am passionate about my job here, and I love our team that we have. And it is one of those things where whether you run a business or not, you should absolutely dwell and draw from, always strive to learn something new every single day. You're right with the tip of the iceberg, absolutely, because we could sit here for 3 hours and talk about this book. Realistically, we're not going to.
And we're good talkers, so we're not going
to do that.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think 24 lessons is your initial kind of, not even core values, because I think you could read this and then still walk away and maybe think, well, actually, I've got 3 more to add to that. Yeah. And look at it from that sense. Yeah. But I have because I read this originally in February when it was put on my desk, and I've reread it over the last couple of days and put post-its in. And I still took amazing things away in just my own life. Yeah. And actually my job here and how to better myself in a job that exists, although my job is my own, but this isn't my company. Yeah. And I'm hoping that there will be something moving forwards. And a book too. Do a book too, Raman. That I can take away and do that from that.
Fantastic. So do we think it's a hit or a miss?
Oh yeah, I'm going to read it again. I haven't made enough notes. I really, for a business book, and again, when you gave it to me, I was like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And I got through the first 6 pages and was like, it's no Danielle Steele, but I'll get into it. You
can use that one as your testimony, Raman. It's no Danielle Steele. Buy this book.
It had ups and downs. There was some really good life stories in it. I didn't want to enjoy this, and I really did.
I think that was the best phrase, and we're going to finish it there. It's really no Danielle Steele, but if you're in business, you'll love it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Raman. Thanks for being a guest, and thanks, Raman, for a brilliant book.
Yes,
it's fantastic.
Thank you, Raman.
Okay. So we're going to have a little break and a little change around, and we've got book 2 that's coming along in very, very, very short succession. So book 2 is one that I'm really passionate about because it's the book that I wrote, InCahoots. So we're going to have a little change in guest, and we're going to talk about my book. I won't talk about it in any detail and shamelessly plug it. I'm sure you'll know that. Just to reiterate, so all of these books are available in multiple sources. So if you have a really good independent bookseller that is close to you, remember, try and buy things from independent booksellers as much as possible. It's not always the case. It's definitely not the case in the next book that you're going to read. There is a multinational, multi-billion pound Amazon business that you should be looking on as well for some of those books. But we will move on very quickly to the next book. Is that what we're doing? Yes. Okay, we'll see you in a second.
Where's the card? Does it matter that I don't have thousands of followers on social media? No, not at all. I'd rather have 50 followers than 50,000 followers if those 50 followers are going to engage and interact with my content, the things that I post on social media. It's a telltale sign that businesses have bought followers when you see, when you come across a social profile and, for example, it might have 50,000 followers, and you look at some of their recent posts and they get little to no engagement. So only a few comments, a few likes and a few shares. It's a telltale sign that that business or that brand has bought those followers. Now, I'm a firm believer in quality over quantity, and that's why I said I'd rather have 50 followers who engage with my content than buying 50,000 followers who I get little to no engagement from. As you grow your presence on social media, your social numbers will grow. I think the best way to kind of to achieve that is to be realistic with your own goals and objectives about how many followers you want to have. Set yourself kind of short, medium and long-term goals in terms of follower numbers, and get into kind of a rhythm or a habit of producing regular content, varying that content so that it constantly appeals to your online audience and that you're getting engagement. And also bear in mind, please don't post salesy promotional posts on your social media account all the time. Let's face it, who likes being sold to? very little people, or very few people, should I say, like being sold to. That's why you should try and vary the content to provide value, content that has purpose behind it for your online audience. And that way you'll be able to grow your online audience more organically in a more authentic and meaningful way than buying followers, as an example. So hopefully that answers your question. Does it matter that I don't have thousands of followers on social media?
Hello and welcome back to Book Club Live. So our first book that we reviewed today was The Foundering Flounder by Raman and Seghal. Our next book is one that is very close to my heart, I have to say, because I wrote it. It's InCahoots, and it's sort of business and personal growth strategies for self-employed or small business people, really, that are implementable and work. And we've got the wonderful Penni Samter-Smith to review it with me. And I asked Penni particularly because she will recognise some of these strategies because we use them and we deploy them in our own business. And not only that, Penni is one of our specialist business growth trainers as well. So if you've ever been through business growth training, no doubt you will have met Penni. And if you haven't met Penni, if you look at the EMS University training courses, you will get to meet Penni as well. So anyway, shameless plugs aside, let's talk about InCahoots. So I'm not going to ask if it's a hit or a miss, Penni, because obviously it's a hit. But I did want to ask you, was there anything from your point of view that you felt was particularly pertinent for business or small business owners and the self-employed that you took from the book?
Yep, absolutely. So, like most people, I am doing my post-its just because I just don't remember. There's a couple of things I wanted to talk to you about which I really liked. I think the first one is in a very short, almost statement in your book, and it's that 3-month rule in terms of mentorship.
Yeah.
And I was quite surprised by that, I guess, given my background in terms of counselling and the longer sort of relationships. It seemed very short, and yet it seemed quite purposeful. So could you tell me kind of how you got to that short?
Yeah, I don't like people. So that's how I came up with it. And I get really bored with it. No, I'm kidding. I am kidding, Penni. It's a good job we've trained together. And you know
it
me.
is a little bit.
Okay, so for me, I think there's a lot that we can learn from lots of different people.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, mentorship becomes friendship. Yeah. And it becomes very difficult to move away then and be really honest with somebody when you've moved into the zone of friendship rather than mentorship, and you've been able to take things from those mentors that you ideally wanted that relationship for. Now, I'm certainly not saying have a 3-month relationship and then never speak to that person again. Despite what I said at the start, I'd like them to move into a friendship zone, as it were, and you can still learn from people. That's not to say you can't learn other things, but from a mentor's point of view, 3 months seems to be the optimum time to be able to get what you need for that moment from that person before you need to move on to the next mentor. And hopefully you're building a network of possible mentors that you can always go back to, because as you know, we've all got different experiences. And mentorship doesn't stop at that point, so your life experience and their life experience will be changing as well. So you may well go back to them at some point, but 3 months from what I can see tends to be the sort of optimum amount of time that you get what you need in that moment, and then you need to move on to the next thing. Again, it's about complacency, isn't it? You can become quite complacent in a relationship, and it's not to feel too comfortable.
Yeah, I guess we have to feel a little uncomfortable to progress.
Yeah.
And I think that makes sense to me as well, in terms of it can be difficult to have a dual relationship in a professional sense, i.e. a mentor and a friend.
Yes.
I think that can be really tricky and asking a lot of people, so it kind of makes sense for me to move on. So yep, that's what I would call bananas.
Yeah, I think as well, I think it's really important that everybody realises that in terms of the actual sort of mentor process, if you like. It's an ongoing process, so it's a relationship that you're building, but it builds in different levels, doesn't it? So initially, it's a transactional relationship. So you're trying to get information from somebody, and they're trying to get information or give you information. As your relationship develops a lot longer, you're able to have those sort of cues really from people as well, and a much more relaxed.
It's quite developmental, isn't it? It's not something that's instant necessarily.
I mean, from my point of view, when I was writing the book, it was an interesting experience because I've never written a book before. This is my first book. And it was quite hard. Initially, this book sort of sat in my briefcase, in my bag. Well, as you know, because you came with me. It came to America on various occasions, and it never came out of the bag. And it took lockdown to really make it work. It actually took. I'll tell you the story in a second. But there was a forfeit for the reason that this book got written, or at least got published as well. Yeah. Tell me more. What else did you like about it? Bring it on. Bring it on.
Let's go for this. Okay. I actually really liked the life audit chapter, and I felt it was probably an important aspect. Sometimes it's completely almost ignored in terms of businesses. I think I see a lot of business owners are very business orientated and have a real sort of issue or find it troublesome to actually think about life as a whole, holistic approach to their business, which does include everything else. Family, friends, and how your personal life is going to tick and integrate and all of those things. So I think it's a really powerful chapter to have in the book. And as is with all of your book, and of course I know you quite well now, it's the whole honesty thing that I find really valuable. You always pretty much say it as it is, and it really comes out, and particularly in here, and sort of heartfelt, sort of not particularly hugely personal disclosures, but really useful life learning that you're happy to share. And I felt one of the interesting aspects was actually in terms of relationships and talking about the whole family and the aspect of having a family at home, obviously, but also having very much your business family.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, Penny, that's a really pertinent thing. And it's actually the thing that when I was reading the Flounder as well, that that resonated with me. When we talked about from Floundering founder, we talked about sacrifice and all of that sort of stuff. Actually, from a life audit point of view, I think that's really important because you do need to know and position yourself for what you will sacrifice, what you won't sacrifice, what you need to level as important and what doesn't, and from a business point of view as well. So I think I'm hopefully really clear in this book. A business and business growth is not about making millions of pounds. For some businesses and some business owners, it is. For other business owners, it's not. And what it is from a life audit point of view is identifying what's the most important to you. So somebody starting in business or growing their business might think actually the work-life balance is much more important. So they might rank themselves higher from a life audit point of view rather than the income. There might be a set amount of income that somebody wants to make, so you would have that less in terms of the life audit. And I think that, oftentimes, or I've found reading business books, there's an assumption that everybody wants to be a multi-millionaire or a millionaire, and that's great. So from that point of view, I love to work with those businesses. That's really exciting. However, there are also other businesses that are just as valid and just as exciting and actually much more functioning sometimes that have different priorities, and that the life audit is designed to bring those things out really.
Yeah. I'm just sitting here, I'm going to go off piece slightly, so please don't kill me, but I'm just wondering actually, in terms of life audit, was there any particular chapter within that was really quite difficult
to write?
Yeah,
I mean, for me, I think finding the balance between home and business is really, really difficult. So personally, I'm not very good at separating home and business. So business blends into pretty much my life all the way through, and sometimes that can be quite difficult. I'll give you an example of that. So I was at a funeral, hence the suit today. I was at a funeral this morning, and don't be sad, she was a very old lady, and it was, you know, a celebration rather than a mournful funeral. And but sort of 3 minutes before I went into that funeral, I was in my car chasing up some monies that were owed to us as a business that hadn't been paid or were overdue to be paid. So literally as the hearse pulled around, I looked into the car next to me and saw my mum sort of signalling to me to say, get off your phone, the hearse is here. And I'm still having that conversation. And so really what I should have done is had that conversation after the funeral as opposed. So I find that blending very difficult to do. And also, just this is a really sad admission from a hobby point of view. Yeah. I love the business, so a lot of the hobbies that I have or the interests that I have are based around business life. So even though it's something that I like doing, so for example, I love making TikToks. So you can have a look at my TikTok channel. It's Phil Teasdale _EMS. That's my TikTok channel. There's another shameless plug. I love making TikToks, but I have to say, hopefully not all boring, but most of them are business related. Yeah. But I like that, so there's a bit of enjoyment. But finding that balance is difficult, and there are much better people than me that have written books that can tell you how to find that balance. This book will not tell you how to find that balance because I don't know. Yeah. If you do know the balance, tell me.
Yeah. Comments below.
Yeah.
It actually rings bells, and just sort of briefly, I was just talking just a moment ago in the training I was delivering, and we touched on Karen Brady, and the reason I'm kind of bringing that lady up is because she talks about that balance, and actually what she says is, I don't have a balance. I am working and that's my passion, and I'm working the businesses I love and adore, or I'm with my family. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I get that. I found that, I get that, and I found it quite astounding, but actually, do you know what? It was almost refreshing. Yeah. Because that balance is always being seized. I've got to do family, I've got to do a hobby, and I've got to do friends, I've got to do, and it's just, it feels too much. And she just went, no, it's that and that.
Yeah, I do think, I think from a family's perspective, there is, there's lessons to be learned in terms of balancing work and family life as well. I think there is, and I also think that you know, and whatever that family looks like as well. So I'm not talking about a traditional, you know, a 2.4 kid family. I'm talking about whatever your surrounding family life is, whether that family is made up of friends or it's made up of different circumstances, or just a partner or no partner, whatever that might be. Oftentimes we dedicate less time to that than we do to business, and actually by having that healthy balance between the two, we will do better in our businesses. And that's a definite lesson that I've learned from that. Do I always get it right? Absolutely not. And you know, that's one thing I would say about this book is these are the lessons that I've learned, and these are the things that have worked for me in my business. And I'm sharing true experience as opposed to sort of researched experience. And it's not always going to work for everybody's business. So there is a certain level of interpretation that I would expect people to take from this. So, you know, it's not a do as I suppose it's a do as I, it's not a do as I say. This opens the conversation in terms of the book. And you can dip in. Yeah, absolutely. And you can dip in at any point. That's the other thing. You know, business books that start in a linear process, I never wanted it to be that. No. So you can open this book at any chapter and practically do something.
Well, hopefully. That was going to be my next comment, actually, and that's what I liked very much, because I obviously have a copy of this. But
everybody has a copy in here of it.
What I do like about it, it's very accessible. And what I mean by that, you can pick it up, go to the agenda at the front and go, right, that's what I wanted to do today, that's what I want to apply, and you're not there for 24 pages later. You've got some very straightforward, really poignant questions that gets that person to the place they need to be for that particular task, so that I feel like it's very timely and the clarity is there really, really quickly. And I also just think it's something you we were talking about it earlier, sort of a clarity just on the shelf. It's always there, it doesn't change. And I'm very passionate about the fact that some of this will really meet what you need and some doesn't.
Absolutely.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
If you get 3 points out of this that are awesome and you absolutely rock and roll with,
then I've done my job. I
was
feel
just
like
about
I've
to
done
say
my
the
job.
job is now done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
I do that because that's really my intention was. I think the only other thing that I would like people to get out of this book is to raise their ambition.
Yeah.
So to raise their ambition for themselves and for their business, and to come out of this knowing that you can be Joe Schmo running a business and still have ambition, and it doesn't matter what ambition or what business that you've got or what that ambition is.
Yeah.
Hopefully at the end of it, that's reignited some ambition within you and your business. And again, like Raman said in his book, The Founder and Flounder, I would really like this to be the sort of conduit opening door to other books and to other learning, and for people to say, well, I've read one book now and I'm going to learn something new, basically. However you learn that, whether it's on Audible, audio book, whether it's on a written book, or whether it's even on a Kindle, or just a book that's been sort of broken down into pertinent chapters for you, or a blog, that continuous learning to me is really, really important.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's a bit of a stock phrase, but every day is a learning day. And I think if we can't accept that as running a business, it's a very difficult path to undertake,
Absolutely.
really. So on the back of you were saying, in terms of encouraging people's ambitions, we obviously do that throughout the business, and encourage people to think bigger. And although it's scary, just enthuse and just even starting to think bigger is healthy and gets people to accept that it can be a lot more doable than they think.
Yeah.
So in terms of, because you tackle the blue sky thinking and look at the 3 areas that you can do to sort of involve that, is there one particular or any sort of particular blue sky thinking project that really sort of gripped you?
Yeah, lots. I mean, we're sitting in it at the moment. We're filming this
sure.
in a huge building that was a blue sky ambition for me, and it was everything that I think a blue sky idea should be. So it was something that was a little bit wild, something that I really wanted, that I would had to really work hard to get, something that was a real stretch, and something that absolutely terrified me in the pit of my stomach for at least 6 months. And all of those feelings then just transferred to the next blue sky idea, because that's the funniest thing. When you reach that blue sky idea, you don't stop then. Suddenly there's another 10, 11, 12, 13 different blue sky ideas as well, and that blue sky just gets a little higher. So just as an example on that, so I think it was yesterday, or maybe early morning yesterday, I was walking my dog along Redcar Beach.
As you do.
Early morning, 5 o'clock, and the sun was coming up, and it was a deserted beach. There was nobody on there, and just me and the dog. And I always find that a really good place to think of ideas, and it is the literal epitome for me of this blue sky, because you're looking out to sea and you see the blue sky. And I was thinking about what my next ideas would be. So that was probably at 5 o'clock in the morning. And you can't see James behind the camera, but about 10:30, 11:15 last night, I texted James and said, I've got a really wild idea. That my blue sky idea had been working from 5 o'clock in the morning all the way through. And I think it'll really excite you. It's going to terrify us, but it's our next steps. And just as you've mentioned that there, every day there should be a blue sky idea, not just something that's huge, but something that's around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it's almost a muscle that needs to be stretched and used and utilised and over again. But I think in your book, the way you tackle it, it asks those questions. It asks the questions to encourage that person to go, right, this is what you need to think about. Answer these questions. And it doesn't go on forever. It's, poignant questions through all the sections. Yeah. And it just brings that person up to speed. Because I feel like you've done there for today, once you've done it once, you're off.
Absolutely. And you could literally do, hopefully, anyway, every chapter in 5 minutes, I think. Pretty much, maybe 10 minutes max. Yeah. And then if you do the activities, maybe an hour a chapter, but maybe once a day, that would be good from there. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not going to ask you if it's hit or miss. Hopefully you like it, and hopefully everybody likes it. This particular book, InCahoots by Phil Teasdale, is only available on Amazon, but it is available on Kindle and hardback and paperback. So I just wanted to say thank you very much,
Thank you for
Penny.
having me.
And Penny and I have trained together across the world, actually.
We have.
And it's always interesting to get Penny's opinion, because Penny comes from a counselling and a psychological background.
Yeah.
And her opinions on the behind of how people feel and how are really always valuable. So if you do get a chance to train with Penny, again, Penny, like Lauren, is on the EMS University. You can download it. There's some really interesting courses that Penny presents on there. Thank you so much, Penny. And in a minute, we'll have our final book.
Email addresses. Should I have a domain name email address, or would a Gmail, Hotmail, or Yahoo email address be okay? I think the thing to ask here would be, how professional do you want to kind of portray yourself? It really bugs me when I see businesses or brands with a website with their own domain name, but they then use a Gmail address with their business name as the first part of it, so business name @gmail.com, for example. I definitely think that it's worth paying for email hosting and using an email address that matches up with your domain, so info at whatever your domain may be, .com.co.uk, hello at whatever your domain may be, .co.uk, .com, whatever it may be. I definitely think it portrays that professional image of your business, which obviously constitutes or contributes towards your online identity, and definitely makes you look like you care, you pay attention to the smaller, the finer details. He won't let me go until I fully answer this question. So what I'm going to do now is dispel some of the common myths around setting up an email address associated with your domain, and how much it costs as well. There's this misconception that it's really hard to do, really hard to set up, and it really isn't. When you pay for your email hosting through whatever provider you choose, more often than enough they send you step-by-step instructions on how to set up your email inbox, and how to even set it up on your mobile device as well, which is really handy. Hey, if I can follow these instructions and I can do it, then I'm pretty sure that you can do it too. But if you're not sure, go to YouTube. There's plenty of video tutorials as well that are readily available that can talk you through how to do it. Cost as well. I think there's this misconception that it's really expensive, and it's not. It really isn't. You're looking at a couple of quid per month, and hey, what does that equate to? A cup of coffee every month, just to have a personal email address that really looks professional, ties in with your brand, and obviously is linked to your domain. It just looks so much more professional. There really isn't an excuse that you can probably think of or come up with not to have a professional email, or to go with a Hotmail or a Gmail or a Yahoo. Happy with that?
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Book Club Live, and we're talking about our final book now. The final book is Radical Candor, which is a book by Kim Scott, and I have a very, very special guest to review this book with me, and I just want to give you the intro to this very special guest. So, I've known this special guest for a number of years. I've known this special guest through various iterations of her business, and I've known this special guest and watched the business life of this special guest grow and develop, and I think it's been really interesting to review this particular book with this special guest. Before I talk about this special guest, I wanted to just tell you a little story. So my book, InCahoots, that we've just reviewed, I told you about it being in my bag for a couple of years, and then during lockdown it being made, and I had to do that through a forfeit even. It was this special guest that made me do the forfeit. So my forfeit was, I'm a secret ukulele player, and if I didn't write and publish the book or get it finished and published, I had to book a hall and play a ukulele concert to an invited guest list. That was my worst nightmare, and it made me finish my book. So I'll be eternally grateful to Josie. She even gets a mention in the preface of the book. So my very special guest for our last book is Josie Dunne. It is Josie Dunne from Funky Needlework. So Funky Needlework, tell me about it.
Funky Needlework is, well, it's my little baby, I suppose. And we design, we sell what our own designs, rulers and fabric and all things gorgeous and quilty and creative like that. We sell them on the telly and on Amazon, and we make lots and lots of fun for people, I suppose, who like creative things.
Brilliant. So tell me a little bit about your journey, Josie.
So my journey started about actually 14 years ago, because my son had his birthday recently. That's how I know. And I was made redundant from a previous career, which we'll not talk about now. And my new sort of desire was I need to get everybody else creating. I need to make it accessible for everybody, and I don't know how that's going to be. So I started teaching, and then started selling fabric, and then had a shop. Had a bit of a kind of a wobble there, and thought, this is not gonna, I'm never gonna be able to retire from this, and so we changed it a little bit and made it a bit more product orientated, and so that we could expand across the world.
Yeah, so you're an international business owner now.
Wow, I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but yes, I am.
So let's just tell everybody exactly who you are. So you are a presenter on, I always want to
Create and Craft.
Create and Craft. So if you are interested in crafting, that's the equivalent sort of channel to something like, you might know it as like a QVC type organisation. So Josie is a main presenter on there.
So we design the products and we take them onto the show, demonstrate them, show people how to use them, sell them on there, and then also you can buy them directly from us as well, which is very nice actually. You can buy them directly from us, and also we will then follow up. You know, if you get stuck, we're there for you. That's the kind of business that we are. And the way we do it is everything that we design is designed for everybody. So if you're a beginner or you're an experienced person, there's something in it for you, but we like to include everybody, and it's really important that we do that.
Fantastic. And we can find you across the world now?
Yes, you can, in America and in the UK. But yes.
Perfect. Excellent. Okay, so I'm just going to set the scene for this book.
Okay.
Now, I remember recommending this book to you, Radical Candor. So that's our next book, Radical Candor by Kim Scott. And I recommended this book to Josie because I thought it would be a book that she would find interesting.
It is.
And as it turned out, she found it, I think, more interesting than me,
I think so.
which made me then go back and read it again. So,
Yes.
tell me about Radical Candor.
So Radical Candor is a book that I've read it twice now, all the way through, start to finish. I read it first about a year and a half ago, I think. And it was at a stage in my business where I wasn't employing staff directly. It was just me. I got other people in to do things, but I didn't have people who were on the payroll. I have now, and it really has had a massive influence on the way the culture of our organisation is developing, because I suppose really it's a brave style of management that we have. I ironically call myself the boss at Funky Needlework because I'm anything but the boss at Funky Needlework. Yes, it's my business, but we certainly have a safe place where people can speak their mind. I don't always have to take their opinions and say, yes, we're going to do that. I will always listen to what they say. But also, the book Radical Candor is really it sets the scene for caring about the people that you work with, and in a way that makes it a safe place for them to have an opinion. It's a different from caring about your staff and looking after them and getting their pension. It's not that kind of thing. It's really about making sure that they feel safe enough to speak up, to challenge you, to be forceful, to say, no, actually, this is what we're going to do, and also to delegate decisions to people. And say, we can discuss this in the group, and then those two people are going to go away and make a decision, and let them do that, because they are the experts in that area. They're the ones who are going to do the research, so they will know. So there's no point in coming back to us and saying, actually, we recommend this, and you totally overriding that. So there are different stages. So yes, you make decisions yourself, or you hand it over to somebody else, and you have to let it go. And that is a really hard thing for businesses to do.
Now, I know that you like this book.
I do like this book.
Can I tell you a reason that I don't like the book?
Right, okay.
Okay, so the reason that I don't like the book is as great as Kim Scott is all the way through, and she's got a really varied career, and she's worked in lots of different places, really, big names. The one thing that annoyed me all the way through the book was how much she name dropped. She really name drops all the way through.
Yes, there is a lot of name dropping happening. However, I think that the message behind that is still there for me, and I heard the message. And so sometimes you just have to rise above yourself, not her, but rise above yourself and ignore that kind of stuff, because the only person that's losing out is the person that's reading it. And yes, it is quite a long book. You do have to be committed to the cause to get the whole. And some people would have edited it and made it shorter. I might have even been tempted to do that myself. But the thing that having a long book like this gives you, it means that she can tell stories over and over and over again, the same message sometimes in a different way, so that you really get it, so that it sinks in. And that's what's really kind of, I have to admit, I listened to this because I'm an Audible fan. I love Audible because I can sew at the same time as I'm listening to a book. I listened to this when I was painting the new premises that we have. So I was painting the walls and the breeze blocks, and it's a very clear, it took me forever to paint, but actually I didn't mind at all because I was listening to the book. And I think, okay, so there's a message in it that's giving a damn, as she puts it, not me, her words, not mine, but also it's the compartmentalising it. So you can give a damn about somebody and their work without being a rescuer. You don't have to rescue them from everything, every situation in their lives. That's not what you're there for. You're there to actually give critical feedback and to accept critical feedback and to give that kind of critical feedback before it's too late. While there's still chance to act on it, to change it, to fix it, and to get something from it. Because if you don't feed that back, you have a responsibility as a boss, which is not a word that she likes to use, but we use it. You have a responsibility as a boss to tell people. You have and actually this is something that I try and do with other people that I work with that are not necessarily in my organisation, but if I spot something, I will say it. Yeah.
It's quite scary though, isn't it? I think the honesty part of it can be quite scary initially to try and implement.
It is. I think it appeals to me because it's something that so my previous career was working in mental health, and I think it appeals to me because it fits with that honesty that there is no point in giving somebody feedback unless it's the whole truth.
Yeah. I would agree.
And also you're not responsible for how somebody else feels about that.
Yeah.
It's that they are responsible for their own feelings in this situation. And so it's not a book for people who are thin-skinned or quick-tempered. Yeah. Well, I mean, it could be, I suppose, but you're just going to have to get over those things and get the best out of it.
You know, the other thing that I really liked was that it was, I think with all the books actually that we've read today, it was results orientated, so
Yes,
it was measurable.
Yes,
And
it was.
I think maybe if there was a common thread through all the 3 books today that we've read, it's that these are books to read, but most importantly, they are books with lessons to implement.
Yeah, they're very action oriented.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
you must. And actually, if nothing else, the philosophy of putting things in place like this will actually it makes it easier
Mm-hmm.
for you. It makes it easier for you to. So if you have meetings that are regular and that nobody likes to come to, addressing that will help you in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is no point in trying to smudge.
Yes.
Smudge is not a word that you'll ever see in this book.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, and I think for all I'm talking about name dropping, Kim has an authentic voice
She
all the
does.
way through. So you can see it's a voice of experience rather than a voice of sort of learning, if you like.
The other thing is that she has worked in those places. And there is, because if she hadn't, you'd be thinking, but she has worked in those, and it's evidence of, it supports her position, if you like. All of those kind of, I've worked here, I was looking at this, I'm trying to think desperately of one of the people that she name dropped, but because it sort of didn't matter to me.
Yeah.
And actually some of it was because I didn't always know who she was talking about.
Yeah.
I'm just be honest about it. My background is not a traditional business background, so therefore my knowledge is possibly different from other people's. And I think, and I think the message needs to. Yeah. Oh, sorry, somebody else is talking.
We're being signalled all
Being
over the
signalled
place.
all over the place.
We
It's
don't
really
quite know what's
hard.
happening now. So this proves that it's live and it's not pre-recorded. So people are sticking signs up at us and all sorts
Can't
of
read and
things.
talk
So
at the same time.
absolutely. Sorry, Josie. So anyway, let's just recap on. So the book that we're reading is Radical Candor.
It is.
And I think both of us have come to the conclusion that we quite like it.
Actually, I've read more than I've liked it so much that I've actually read another of her books as well.
And how did you find that?
Long and excellent.
Okay, so I can, if I'm completely honest, I haven't read another one of her books. Even though I did like Radical Candor, I didn't like it enough to go out and seek other books from her.
Do you know, there's something really interesting about it, because the other one, the rest of further reading of hers that I've done is particularly about women in the workplace as well.
Yes.
And acceptance of differences, and it's a really interesting dynamic viewpoint that she has about the workplace, and I think it's worth reading further.
Fantastic. Okay, so Josie, do we think Radical Candor by Kim Scott is a hit or a miss?
Oh, I think it's a hit.
Definitely a hit.
Definitely a hit.
Okay, so there's somebody going to throw something at me here. What are we talking about? Oh, okay. So just on the messages, because we've got the live stream going on at the same time. We've had a message. We've had a message from somebody we both know, who was our lovely special guest the month before, Lucy Patterson. And Lucy has said to us, letting go of the decision-making process is something I struggle with. So if this book has converted, it must be good.
It is. It's very good, because I am a very, how do I say this, strong-willed person. And I have somebody that works for me who is also probably even worse than me, actually. But I know, it's hard to believe. It really is hard to believe. But sorry, Brona, but she is, and it's really been it's been a learning kind of. I have to listen and go, okay, how important is it for me to have this? No, it's not. Make the decision, because you're the one that's going to do the piece of work. Make the decision. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't see which is the right decision. You've got more information than me. Go with it.
Fantastic.
It's really hard.
That's fantastic. Okay, so we're saying it's a hit.
Definitely.
And you've definitely read more books. Okay, so I'm going to take that advice and read some more books by Kim Scott as well. and no doubt we can review them again.
Excellent.
Okay, so our 3 books. First of all, I should say thank you so much for Josie for taking the time to come and be part of Book Club Live.
Thank you
I know she had a mammoth journey to get here today, and so we're very, very grateful for her attending and coming and being our very special guest today.
It's been fun.
Thank you. So we've read 3 books today as part of Book Club Live: The Foundering Flounder by Raman Seghal, InCahoots by Phil Teasdale, and Radical Candor by Kim Scott. Now, the last time that we did Book Club Live, there's a bin behind there or something, we came up with this little plan. I'm hoping you can see, so I'm going to put it down here. So a little bit like Top Gear, we are going to rank our leader chart, and we're going to ask you all to read some of these books, hopefully, like we are, and then we'll have a little vote and we'll rank them from 1 to however many books we get. So last time we read The Design Thinking Playbook by Michael Lurick, Profit First by Mike Michalowicz, and The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. And we've ranked them how we felt that they read. But what we're going to do is add in Radical Candor, InCahoots, and The Floundering Founder. And I'm going to have nothing to say because obviously InCahoots would be up at the top. But we'll take it to an open vote, and we'll ask you to, hopefully, if you've enjoyed Book Club Live and we've stimulated you to read some of these books or listen to some of these books, we'll take a vote. So mid-month, we'll take a vote, and then we'll get this leaderboard back out. We'll do a live, and we'll tell you about where they are and just reiterate the books that we've read as well. Next time, we are live again in 2 months' time. So Book Club Live is every 2 months. We'll have some more special guests and we'll have some more great books.
I have a question.
Okay.
Are you taking suggestions for books?
Well, it's funny you should ask here, Josie. So I have a little surprise. So can tell you next time when we do Book Club Live, we have 2 particular books. So if you would like to read along with us or be able to be part of the conversation when we go live next time, 2 of the 3 books that we're going to read or have guests read next time are: number 1, Find Your Red Thread by Tamsin Webster, which was recommended to me through Tamsin herself, actually, in America. And I think it's a really interesting book, so I can't wait to share that with all of you. And secondly, and we'll have the author here to talk about her book next time on Book Club Live, Step Up, Stand Out by Hilary Dunne. So we're reading that book, definitely, and Find Your Red Thread at the new book or the next Book Club Live, which will be in June. However, you'll notice there's only 2 books, not 3. So at the end of the week, you will find a little poll in the Facebook group which will suggest a number of books that you might want to vote for to be our 3rd book, but also leave it open to you to suggest a book as well. We'll leave that poll open for a week, and whichever book comes out top, as long as we haven't read it before, we will then read that book as part of Book Club Live in June and invite a very special guest to review it. Or alternatively, if you're really passionate about that book and it's something that you've read before and you want to be a special guest and part of Book Club Live as well, we would love to have you. So just let us know that as well. We invite anybody to be a special guest on Book Club Live, as long as you can bring something in terms of the reading, the information that you can give us about the book, and an openness to new ideas. So even if those books are a little uncomfortable for you, as long as you can express things in a positive way and find lessons from them, we would love to have you as part of Book Club Live as well. So just to recap, our 2 books next time in June are Step Up, Stand Out by Hilary Dunne, and the author will be here, and Find Your Red Thread by Tamsin Webster. We'll review that one as well. And finally, on Friday, we will put up a poll in our Facebook group, the EMS Flipping Good Facebook group, where you'll be able to vote and nominate the third book for next time's book club. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. I just wanted to thank all of my guests. So we started with The Foundering Flounder and Raman Seghal, reviewed by Lauren Durrance. We then moved on to InCahoots by Phil Teasdale, reviewed by Penni Samter-Smith. And finally, Radical Candor from Kim Scott, reviewed by Josie Dunne of Funky Needlework. So it's www.funkyneedlework.com. www.funkyneedlework.com. And finally, if I'm plugging Josie, I need to plug us as well. If you want to go on my TikTok to remind you, because I love TikTok, is Phil Teasdale _EMS. Our Facebook group is the EMS Flipping Good Facebook group. Our website is www.enterprisemadesimple.co.uk, and you can find all sorts of goodies on there, including lots of live masterclasses that are free for you to access, as well as the EMS University. So thank you so much for taking part today and watching along. We hope to see you very, very soon, and we really appreciate your time. Thanks now.